on TMN or our October TMN Tuesday coming up October 11th. The focus for the October TMN Tuesdays is our chapter project fair. And this is all of the exemplary projects that the chapters who are competing for the prize this year will be holding presentations, those presentations during our October 11th TMN Tuesday. And so these projects will be chapter projects submitted from across the state of any chapter who wants to submit a project for a prize. And they're typically projects that can be, they're presented in a way that the projects can be redone or repurposed and adapted to any chapter. So chapters are presenting a good project, a new idea project that they have, and then how your chapter can implement such a project too. That'll be the focus of our TMN Tuesday in October.
And please hold the times. The times for that has not been finalized. So we're holding that 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. window, and then based off of the number of projects that get submitted, we'll shorten that down to meet that final total. So kind of hold that window for us.
And we'll talk a little bit more about the project fair in an upcoming slide, but every chapter has an opportunity to submit a project for this. And we will describe that process in the upcoming slides when we come to contests.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump in again. I apologize about the technical issues. My computer decided to stop talking for a little bit. So annual meeting and all things. I'm going to try and keep this fairly short so that we can spend most of this meeting on the governing documents. But you've seen all of these slides before, so I'm just kind of reviewing where we're at on the slides. We have some really big deadlines next week. Next week is actually full of deadlines. We have our in-person registration closing next week. So it'll switch over and only virtual registration will be available after that. All of our contests close at the end of next week as well. There's some other changes that are coming on the with those deadlines too, and I'll get to that in just a second. So again, that registration, it's September 29th. It's not the 28th. There is a mistake on this slide, so I do apologize. So September 29th, the registration for in-person registration will cut off. Virtual will still be open, but it will switch over to late virtual access after the 1st.
But if you can get registered by the 28th, even better.
Exactly. It helps us out to turn that into the hotel. So running through the contests, I'll do the first two, Michelle, and if you'll do the second two. So chapter advisors awards, we don't have any submissions in this one yet. So please think about your advisors. I see some of them on this phone call with us today. Advisors, don't be afraid to go to your chapters and say, hey, what if y'all think about nominating me? We would love to have an opportunity to shine a spotlight on the great support that you guys are receiving in your local county areas by our Parks and Wildlife and our AgriLife Extension folks who support the Master Naturalist program. So please, please, please submit your nomination for your chapter advisor.
And you can submit nominations for either or both a single nominee or a team of advisors.
Yep. And then photo and art contest. So this is happening now. We are collecting photos, we're collecting art, we're collecting media entries right now. September 1st through September 30th is the time frame that we are collecting those entries. We'll then put them into our systems, and voting for these entries will be during the annual meeting. So if you want to make a submission to this contest, you have to do that now. Your chapter members have to do this now. What's interesting is out of these 4 contests, this is the only individual based contest. Everything else is kind of a chapter based contest. So please submit your photo, art, and media. I don't think that there were very many media entries earlier when I was looking. So please consider submitting for your brochures, your scrapbook, your newsletters, all of that kind of stuff into our photo, art, and media contest.
One of the key things with the photo art and media contest is that you don't have to be a registrant in order to the annual meeting to enter something. But the voting will take place at the annual meeting.
Yep. Okay, Michelle, you want to talk about Project Fair?
Yep. Project Fair mentioned a little bit earlier, it'll be the Project Fair, and your presentations for the Project Fair will be the focus of our October TMN Tuesday. We are still accepting on submissions, and through, let's see, the 30th of September. If it happens to sneak in on October 1st, we'll probably take it too. But so the not submitting your chapters project is the easy part. All we need is a little 3 to 4 sentence paragraph about what your project is and what you'll be presenting on. And it would compete against the others that are submitted for the day and for the contest. The presentations will take place October 11th during our TMN Tuesday. And it is a presentation. So following up on our pandemic years, we switched to a presentation type of process for the Exemplary Project Fair Awards and presentations. They used to be like an old science fair type of board. And so everybody really liked the format of the presentations, and it's a little bit easier too. So on the chapter. So we're excited to see what you submit, and we're excited to see who the winners are. Video contest is still open as well. Again, the deadline for almost all the contests are September 30th. And we're still searching for videos. If your chapter has done a promotional video or informational video on your chapter training, who your members are, any of your projects, it is eligible for the video contest. Videos should aim to be 1 to 3 minutes long, and can be submitted to compete for an award as well. So most of the prizes for all of our awards are project grants, small project grants for chapters to start or continue an existing project in the chapter level.
Okay, and then talking about silent auction, our Galveston Bay Area chapter is hosting our silent auction this year. We're bringing back the kind of old style of silent auction. They are asking for donations from chapters. They have a great list of ideas and suggestions on the website, and then on the screen as well. If you are, as a chapter, donating an item, send it with one of your attending members so that they can bring it with them. And drop it off either Thursday or Friday at the very beginning of the annual meeting. The auction will stay open throughout the meeting until Saturday at 6 o'clock. It'll cut off right before dinner. And then we'll have dinner and announce or open it up for winners to finish payment on the items that they've won. So more information for the silent auction is on the website as well. And they are accepting both cash, credit cards, and checks this year.
And this is another way, you don't have to be registered for the annual meeting to contribute in this way either. So anyone can contribute to the silent auction. And like Mary Perrell said, just send your donation with another chapter member who is attending, or you can send it to the Galveston Bay Area chapter for them to bring as well.
Yep, and then some more, just the last couple of things about the annual meeting. We just opened up our pop-up store. This is another one of those deadlines that's coming up here pretty soon. And that is actually incorrect. It closes on September 26th. So you've got the whole weekend to finish paying for your pop-up store items. Sorry about the background noise, but please check out this website. It's got jackets and polos and vests by request, and then some shirts with our annual meeting design on it as well. Michelle, you want to talk about that one?
Yep. Every year at our annual meeting, Dawn Nicole puts together a photo montage, photo slideshow from all of our chapters and their events over the past year. And so we have the request out again this year. We have a deadline of October 3rd to get photos in. Donna's requesting about up to 10 photos from each chapter. And so if this is something that you as the president or your historian at the chapter level can assist with and get the photos to Donna, her email address is there. And then we did send a notification out through the listserv with all the details about pixel size and picture size and formats and things like that, which we'll send out to you again, to the chapter presidents and to the listserv again.
Okay, I think this is the last thing on the annual meeting, but our bulk curriculum orders is open again for this year's annual meeting. So if you need to bulk order or want to bulk order buy your curriculums for the coming training year and save on shipping, we'll do the shipping and the delivering for you, so to speak. If you put in this order, I will take our trailer before I head over to Houston for the annual meeting, load up all those boxes and boxes of books for you guys and bring them all the way to your door at the Omni Houston for you to be able to pick up. So that deadline is also coming up here pretty quick for that bulk curriculum order, October 12th. I sent that email out a few weeks ago. Probably will send it out one more time just to make sure everybody sees that. And then please make sure that you designate who is going to be picking up those books. And if you order a lot, it's probably going to be pretty heavy. So just think about that part. Okay. Any questions on annual meeting things?
Yeah, and I failed to drop links as we were talking about annual meeting in the things on these previous slides. We kind of flipped to that really fast. So if just take a minute, if there are some links that you missed and you want us to drop in the chat, let us know what those are. And because in the after this little section, we're going to transition to the governing documents. Or if you have questions about the annual meeting now, speak up or send it in your, oh, there's a question about scholarship info.
Yeah, so we have
travel
one travel stipend for each chapter designated, and I sent that out to chapter presidents. If you have a question about your travel stipend, if it's been used or what the code is, send me an email and I can make sure that I can get you that code and apply it to your chapter member. Project presentations are 20 minutes.
Including questions. Including questions.
15 minutes with 5 minutes of Q&A. Okay. Michelle, we're gonna keep going. Okay, so running into the bulk of the rest of the presentation today, we're going to talk about the governing documents and the updates that have been made, the history of that process, what that process will look like going forward. And then we're going to spend some time and kind of break down each and every single one of those documents, the updates made from a red is the old version, green is the new version, so y'all can see that. Michelle, will you share the history of that?
Yeah, so every so often, up until this point, every so often we've gone in and updated the documents based on need that we've heard from our chapters in over the past few operating years. Our last major update to the documents was December of 2017, and that culminated about 1 to 2 years of work on different documents. In 2017, we presented a new CMOP, updated CMOP, and chapter operating handbook. Those were the two major documents of 2017. And we knew at that time that bylaws were kind of out of sequence, out of sync with the other two documents, and that bylaws would need to be updated at some point in the future. So our last big update to the documents was December 2017 for implementation with the 2018 calendar year. So everything within our program runs on a calendar year. And so when the documents were updated in the fall, it's for implementation in the January of the calendar year. Every time we do an update of our documents, we always ask for feedback from our chapters. And for this year's updates that we're presenting here today, we have collected feedback from our chapters for the past for 3 years. So we ask for feedback annually to chapters in the summers of 2018 and 2019. And in 2020, because pandemic, we had a really big push for extra detail, extra feedback during the summer of 2020 on the documents. So everything that we're presenting and have presented to you thus far is based on information that was collected in detail that was provided by your chapters through 2018, 2019, and then 2020. And then there's been a little bit, a couple of items that we'll present today that we've received feedback on for over the past about a year. So our process started in early spring. I look back at the dates, February of 2021, we launched into the update of all of our documents. We started with our CMOP, the Chapter Management Operations Protocol first. And at that time, we had 2 volunteers that came to us and said, we have experience in a process like this, and we're willing to help. And I'm not sure they knew what they were getting into, but they're still with us today. So early spring of 2021, our volunteers assisted with compiling the multiples of documents from all of our chapters and the feedback that you provided, and kind of coalesce that into the documents that you see today. So together with our state office and our volunteers, we worked through finalizing the edits over the really since spring of 2021 and through July and September of 2022. So we've been working together, meeting sometimes almost monthly, if not more, and to get these review the documents, review the suggestions from chapters, and then make updates as needed and appropriate. And this has been the process that this has been a similar process that we followed for every new iteration of the documents that we've had in the past. So even with the 2017 documents, it was a couple of years of coalescing together resources and information and suggestions from chapters to put into a version, the 2017 version of the documents. And now the similar process was done with the documents we're presenting today for implementation in 2023. We promised you at our last president's meeting that we would be posting the documents to our website in September. And we did that, I think last week, that they were posted there. Give you a little bit of time to review them. And we know that not all of that your review you probably haven't had enough time to review, but we wanted to get them up there, get you familiar with them, offer this meeting today to kind of walk you through some of the biggest changes, and then come to the annual meeting with any questions that you have. So we do have time set on our annual meeting schedule when we meet with the presidents in October to field like further questions that you'll have on these documents. All right, so before we go any further, big thank you to Christine Morrison and Lori Buffum. And just a little bit background, both of them are members from the Gideon Lincecum chapter. And I think, is it Christine that's on with us today? Christine is on the call with us today too, so she can lend any insight and info from her end if needed. Just to give you a little bit of background on these 2 volunteers, Lori worked as a technical writer and proofreader, professional technical writer and proofreader for many years. And Christine has been on multiple statewide committees for another organization where they updated and created guidelines, bylaws, policies, procedures, and rules documents. And then together at their chapter level, they've worked together for several years in similar efforts with their chapters policies and procedures, and the state documents, implementing and kind of updating and editing the state documents at their local chapter level also. So a great team to bring together and kind of lend their efforts to our statewide documents efforts. Together, they coalesced all the suggestions and updates from across the state, which I lost count of how many documents that was that I sent y'all. But it was a heroic effort on their part to kind of bring all this information together and synthesize it into changes that needed to be made, and suggestions that we needed to go through and review. Together, they brought the organization and expertise to ensure that the documents were consistent in content. Going into this, we knew that the documents, the language across the documents weren't consistent, and these ladies brought that to these documents. So now we have a consistent organization and in content, format, grammar and punctuation rules throughout. And the big thing that they brought to this effort was user friendliness. So, and we'll take you through some of these documents here in a minute. The other person I want to mention is Bill Burge from the Mid-Coast chapter, who provided early on in that 3-year kind of review process and time that we were asking for feedback. Bill developed an editorial style guide for the program, and his document that he submitted was the basis for all of our kind of editorial grammar edits that we incorporated and made consistent across all of the documents. And it was a great document that he submitted, and we do plan to incorporate that piece into our brand guide update, which we will be launching into in the upcoming year. So all that being said, thank you, Chris, Lori, Bill, and everyone else who submitted suggestions, submitted edits, and then big heroic thank you to Lori and Chris for kind of bringing that all together and kind of culminating this project, bringing it and helping lighten the load for our state office.
Absolutely.
We need to get off.
Chris, did you want to say something?
Oh,
You're unmuted.
oh, so sorry. I keep going in and out. I'm
Okay.
in West Texas driving across. So we're so glad it's done. But we're not quitting Master Naturalists. Anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. If you have any, if I have cell service. So
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and safe driving.
So
Okay,
I gave you a little bit. Oh, you want me to cover the future? You want to cover it?
I'll do it.
Okay.
So looking towards the future kind of revision process for these documents, we're going to keep that same
detour
3-year process as we've done in the past, but we're kind of shoring it up with the years here so that you guys can put that on your calendar and kind of keep your board in place here. The documents will be reviewed on that 3-year cycle. We'll collect comments and feedback through the website, and we'll show you that here in just a little bit. We have a new form that we'll be using so that all the feedback goes into the same format and same place. So 2023, 24, and 25 will be our feedback years. In the summer of 2025, we will take all of those feedbacks and edits and comments, compile those onto the documents. In fall 2025, complete those updates, send those updates out to everybody in probably the same time frame that we're at right now in September or so that you have time to review, prepare your incoming board so that those documents will then be executed to start in at the beginning of the calendar year of 2026, so January 1 of 2026. Okay. So moving through, Some major updates also happened as we were going through this process to the website, and we've toyed with a couple of different layouts here. Annabelle Moore, our student intern, was really a big part of making this website functional, making it flow, but also making it usable in a way that that gives you guys quick access to all of these types of documents and resources on here. So and I've dropped the link in the chat, and I can drop it a couple more times if you need me to. But the organization of the documents on the page is their flow for these governing documents. You'll see that our code of ethics and our standards of conduct are at the top. Those govern the entire program. We do have the temporary training policies, and those are at the top specifically because they are timely for this calendar year as they are temporary. That may move to additional resources at the bottom, depending on how that flows in the next calendar year. And we'll talk about that change moving forward in just a little bit.
And
Then
just
after-
one thing to mention, sorry, on the old documents had a flow chart as an addendum or an attachment. And so we've kind of taken that out of the new documents, and the website now is kind of that org chart of the documents.
Yep. So I'd start with this roadmap here. If you haven't reviewed that, has been updated, and it really explains the role of our three main governing documents, their order, and then the other documents as well. So it goes chapter bylaws, then CMOP, then chapter operating handbook, and then below that we have additional operating resources, and that list is much longer than what this screenshot grabbed. But we'll talk through each of those documents here in just a second. One of the other functionality things that we added onto the website is a table of contents. It is expandable, so you can quickly jump to some of these documents if you need to. So again, just trying to create a functionality. That web page has bothered me for years, and how it is not as user-friendly as some of the other pages on our website. And so we've worked really hard to try and create that functional flow of the documents in the page. I'll also say we encourage you to mimic some of these types of styles that we've done on our state website, on your chapter website, as you're putting some of your resources and tools on your website. All right, Michelle, you want to kick us off with we are going to go out of order on these documents, but we're doing that on purpose. So Michelle, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so one of the things we presented to you last year for implementation this year was our chapter management and operations protocols. And so we're covering that today because we had a couple of updates to it since it's been out this year. And this was the first document that our team tackled in the whole updating process. And so, like I mentioned, it was submitted or presented last fall for implementation in 2022 with the calendar year. And then once it got out there, a couple of the edits that were made in 2021 had some impacts to chapters and had impacts to a lot of chapters. And so we heard your feedback, and we've met with several chapters over the past year, and we've had some updates as a result. So this document is probably the document that has the least updates for this year. So prior to this year, it had a ton of updates. But this year's updates for implementation in 2023 was just about 4. So, and I'm going to detail those. We're going to show you those. So, oh, can you go back one more? These are the 4 sections on this page here, where we are actually telling you the exact 4 sections where edits were made to this document for the 2023 calendar year. So section, they're all in section 4, and which is training and certifying volunteers. And so in the subsequent slides here, I'll detail the exact changes. So the first one, and we're just going in order, section 4.1.3, where it talked about making up missed classes for initial training. On the bottom is what the old language was. On the top in the green is what the new language is. And what this does, this new version loosens the requirement of making up initial training classes, where previously the verbiage in the 2021 document was pretty hard on classes need to be made up within 12 months. For the 2023 version, we've loosened that, the language was loosened on that. So we have updated the document to say that makeup classes need to be done. And we've provided 4 different, we really pulled out some bullet points from the old document and made kind of these, there's 4 different ways that advanced training, makeup classes can be accomplished. And then it kind of takes away the hard and fast rule of 12 months. The second update for the CMOP is in for the time frame. So 4.4.1.2. Again, this is all talking about the initial training course requirements. The old version, again, there is on the bottom in the red. The new version is in the green. Members are encouraged to complete the initial training course and AT and volunteer service requirements for initial certification within 12 months of the start date of the initial training course. This new version softens the previous hard language and hard deadline for members who struggle to become certified within that first year. In the new language, strongly encourages chapters who do have struggling members to meet with them individually, struggling trainees, to kind of meet those 3 requirements, meet them individually and develop a plan that works for both the volunteer and the chapter on completing their initial certification.
And I'll say our goal in these updates is the same goal as y'all, is to ultimately end up with certified volunteers. We want our volunteers to have all 3 components of certification. We want to be able to stay adaptable to different situations, but we also don't want to diminish the legitimacy that comes with a master naturalist title by relaxing those requirements. So we're by giving individual scenarios for chapters to be able to develop those plans with those members. We're still requiring the 48 and 40 for certification. We're just giving that flexibility.
And different members have different constraints and different things going on in their lives that might prevent them from completing in a hard and fast deadline. So the new verbiage is giving chapters the opportunity to work with that member in those cases. A kinder, gentler training process. And then section 4, the next one is section 4.4.1.4, which talks about recertification eligibility. And this just clarifies or restates a policy on double certification or recertification eligibility. The new version clarifies the recertification, or what was once called double certification, in the first year of initial certification. So typically a person when they certify in their first year, they can also do double duty and certify and get the initial Dragonfly pin and certificate, but they can also do an additional 40 hours of service and advanced training, 8 hours of advanced training to get that year's certification pin. And so the new version kind of clarifies that process. And we kind of, the terminology double certification kind of tripped up some members, some chapters. And so we've taken out the double certification terminology and just clarified what certification and recertification is. And then the last section that was updated for 2023 in the CMOP is the 4.5.1. And it talks about reporting hours regarding milestone awards. And you can see that, of course, the old version is on the bottom in the red. The new version, updated version, is in the green at the top. This new version clarifies that all hours need to be logged in VMS within 45 days of completion. And then it clarifies that members must have at a minimum completed initial training requirements in order to receive milestone awards. So in order to get a milestone award, they must be a trained Texas Master Naturalist. They must have completed training.
And while that scenario only occurred a handful of times, it was still something that had never been put in writing in our document. So we wanted to put that in writing. Okay. Moving on to chapter operating handbook. And if y'all have questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll also have a time at the end for kind of some open discussion if you have questions. Also realizing that some of this is new and that you're seeing this within a week of getting that first email. So asking questions at the annual meeting is also part of the plan. So moving into the chapter operating handbook, the title has been updated. The document has been renamed as the chapter operating handbook, a framework, with additional instructions in bracketed italics scattered throughout the document. This is the one Word document that's on the website. Everything else is in PDFs. And so this Word document is intended for your chapter to add in and to create your chapter's operating handbook with those bracketed italics, directing that text to guide your chapter in the building of those sections. You can delete those instructions in that bracketed text as well as you finish that document. We based all the revisions on reviews that were submitted by your chapter since 2017. There are also some updates and some additions that we had here on the COH, and we'll talk through some of those here in just a second. Again, when we were doing this, Chris and Lori did a fantastic job of making sure that we were keeping the same styling on this document. We've updated the numbering system to make it match the CMOP and match the bylaws. They've also added a lot more detail to that table of contents. Again, creating that usability of these documents, keeping them consistent. And so there's the similar look across all three of the major documents.
And in the numbering system helps everybody to be on the same page about what line item or what line we're talking about in each document, and kind of get us to where, so if you have questions, it kind of gets us all to the same place quicker.
So again, major those revisions throughout the text, through the text for clarity and brevity. They reorganized the major sections and subsections for ease of use of reference, as Michelle was talking about. We did add a few major sections, the chapter project, so I'm going to go further into that one here in just a second. We added a section at the end for references and resources. That's where your chapter can put your chapter's website and more on there. There are changes in the nomenclature, definitions, policies, and timelines that should be noted by all chapter leaders. We'll detail that in the next slide as well. And then all changes were thoroughly reviewed and approved by our state office through a routine and through those meetings that we were talking about earlier.
Before we leave this slide, the one thing I want to mention about the timelines. So the note where we said that there's substantive changes in nomenclature, definitions, policies, and timelines. The timeline one, I would say, is probably the biggest issue. If you looked across the documents, or probably the biggest improvement in this area. If you looked across the documents, there were different timelines of notification for things like meetings and nominations and voting. And so they were different times in different documents. And one of the things that we've done is try to make that more streamlined, I guess, or similar across all the documents. So the timeline, instead of in one place where it might have been 15 days, in another place it was mentioned 30 days, we tried to go with one timeline across the documents.
Okay, so jumping into that chapter projects major section update as well. It's here. We have added this major section in order to provide your chapter with additional guidance on the position of the project leader. We've defined travel time in this section as well. And then one of the other sections, so that's in 6.2 right here. The other important part to notice is 6.3.7. We've incorporated some of our standard operating procedures when it's come to grants and donations that has been done before, but never has been written or has not been written on these documents before. So that's identified here in the 6.3.7, as well as another place in the document I'll talk about here in just a second. Michelle, do you want to add anything on the chapter project section?
Just one mention that the chapter project section, like you see on the presentation screen here, offers some guidance to why this is such an important part of the chapter's operations, and kind of keeping track of projects and having a project leader, and kind of how to do that, and who the likely what the project leaders might do, so that what's done for one project is kind of consistent across all the projects in our system.
Yep. Some more updates, and you'll notice that these bullet points are in that document that we emailed to you guys last week, that summary of revisions, and we're kind of walking through some of these. We're going to walk through 3 more on this page here in just a second. But some other revisions that were done throughout the chapter operating handbook. The duties of the board was expanded to address issues of confidentiality, communications, and representation. All the sections describing the duties of officers and directors was expanded to include more detail on those duties as well. Setting dues section clarifies the timeline for annual membership dues. I think we'll talk about that one here in just a little bit. Expanded list of optional standing committee members a chapter can choose from. We'll show you what we're talking about there. Detailed description of new suggested committees for grants, donations, and contracts. Again, something that has come up and has been a standard operating procedure, but has not been written before. Membership categories refined. Pledge terminology has been removed across all documents, and so it's consistent throughout all 3 of the documents, those membership categories. And then a section has been added in meetings to describe the basics of chapter meeting minutes. So we're going to talk through these 3 sections next. So expanded list of optional standing committees a chapter can choose from. I didn't capture the section number on this one, so I apologize about that. But these are just additional suggestions for committees that your chapter may decide to add into your chapter operating handbook framework, based off of kind of the updated time period. That includes the DE&I committee, that includes social media committee. You may decide to have an information technology committee. So those are all things that are suggested here. We did also put a pretty heavy detailed description of a suggested grants, donations, and contracts committee. There are several chapters that have external grants or donations that they receive for projects. And while we work individually with those chapters, it was important for us to put this into writing and provide it for all of our chapters moving forward. So if you are working with a grantor or an organization that provides funds for your chapter, this outlines some general operating procedures that we suggest on here, including I think the most important one there is 5.2.3 section C, where any chapter that receives a grant or donation of $5,000 or more must notify the TMN state office. Again, this is just creating that functionality for your chapter if you are including those, if you're receiving of grants, contracts, donations. Thank
And
you,
this,
Michelle.
this section was updated with a lot of detail from some other chapters that have been, this is the process that they've also been using to operate when receiving grants, donations, and contracts, MOAs, things like that. So thank you to the chapters who contributed to this section too.
The next section in here was added. 8.4 talks about chapter meeting minutes, specifically the importance of meeting minutes, the process for those, the what should be included, what should not be included. And then this really ties into our chapter records retention document update that we'll talk about here in just a little bit, and how those meeting minutes are suggested to be kept and shared as well. So a pretty substantive list here on chapter meeting minutes and more there. Okay, running into bylaws. Michelle, you want to talk about the bylaws document update?
Yep. So summary of revisions for the bylaws document. First and foremost, we've made the document a fillable document. So it is there as a PDF now. And if you remember the old document, there were two places where your chapter selects your term of office, and I forget the other one, but those items have been made
501c3.
Yes, 501c3. And so those two pieces have been made fillable on the form that we now have on the website, or the document that's now on the website. The summary of changes for the entire document is, first one is we edited text throughout for clarity and brevity and consistency across the document. So using kind of that brand guide style, writing style guide that Mr. Burge had developed for us, that was also incorporated into the bylaws. There were some minor changes to the organization of sections, not the organization itself, just the organization of sections under each article. We added a second level of detail to the table of contents, revised some terminology where necessary to make all three of the state guiding documents consistent and up to date with current practices and kind of consistent with one another. We removed references to the membership category pledge. Again, that's something that the pledge category or pledge terminology is something that we've removed across all of the documents. And we clarified the status of the honorary member designation and how a chapter would designate an honorary member. We added further details in appropriate sections regarding the chapter's authority and obligations regarding contracts or memorandums of understanding and memorandums of agreements. And we've done some research, and these changes will not require a refiling with the IRS or bank. So.
Okay, so with those three documents and those revisions, that is our three main governing documents. Throughout this process, we also looked at some of our additional operating resources. Those are the documents that fall on the second half of the website page. Going to show you some of those and the layout and some of the changes, and then the planned upcoming changes for these documents, so that y'all can reference these as you're looking at your three main governing documents and updating those. So again, this is everything that happens under the governing documents top section of the page. The first one is the COVID-19 guidelines. While this has been linked on the front end of the website, it was never officially a document on the documents page, so we moved this one over there. And we are still operating under that May 2021 COVID guidelines update. And so that is there. We will update that as needed or if required by our state agencies. The brand guide is also linked here. It's also linked on our marketing page so that it is very apparent on how to use the logo. The brand guide is in multiple places on the website. But it is linked here as it is designate how to use our TMN logo, the name, your chapter name, what to put into acronyms, what not to put into acronyms, and when. And we'll be updating that in the next year, as we've said a few times. And then the last document in this first set top of the section is the chapter records retention policy. The name of that document has changed. We call it it used to be called chapter data retention. Records makes more sense because it's all things records and data. So the sections that we've added are chapter meeting minutes, subscription services, and chapter records. And let me walk you through those changes. So on chapter records retention, everything highlighted yellow has changed. The green box means that this is a screenshot of the new part. Under section 1.b, chapter operating handbook, that was actually buried down further in the old data retention policy. So we've moved that up because that is a legal governing document for your chapter. The visibility has changed. That is permanent, and the access, or I'm sorry, that second column there, I didn't capture the top heading. The second column there is the where it says permanent is the time frame for retention. The last column here is the access, so who has access to those documents. And so chapter operating handbook is a permanently kept of the current version and is available by request by the public. Some other changes in section 3, the timeline for retention has changed in this section. We also added section 4. We have a number of chapters who have subscriptions to different software like Dropbox or Canva or Google, websites, things like that. So we wanted to make sure that your chapter is keeping those subscription statuses updated and retained by your entire chapter for kind of some safety protocols. So keeping the name, the user information, access, cost, and all of that kind of stuff available for your board of directors to have as needed. Okay, the section 6 is a completely new add, chapter records. We realized that we did not have a chapter records suggestion in our chapter records retention policy documents. We added section 6 here with different parts of the chapter meeting minutes and member records kept by the chapter. Section 7, financial records, we added the banks and the bank statements and a policy on that. And then fundraising records, we changed the timeline for those documents as well. All right. Michelle, you want me to keep going and then we can come back to questions?
I can do this one.
Okay, you do this one.
All right. So going through the rest of the additional operating resources that are on our website as they're listed, we have the Insurance and Liability 101. That one will be reviewed in 2023 and updated as allowed or needed. It's something that needs to be reviewed by both of our state agencies, legal counsel. And if there are updates that are needed, we will update that one and present it through one of our chapter presidents meetings. The chapter conflict of interest form was reviewed and it remained the same. And the form is on the website. And then the new item that we have is the governing document feedback form. So the way that we are going to collect your chapter feedback for the remainder of the review of these documents is that we will use this feedback form. So one of the difficulties we had is we had received emails from everybody all over the place. And that was the hardest part of this job, is kind of bringing all of that information together and getting it all in one place. So we are using the feedback form on the website now or going forward for any suggestions, changes, edits, and questions about the documents. So you want to walk us through the form, Mary Pearl?
Yeah. It's pretty straightforward form. We've got the first part of the form is contact information, which is why it's back here. So just who's filling out the form, what chapter are you representing, what officer position do you represent in the chapter, and then the second half is kind of helping us to again narrow down and collect feedback in targeted ways. So as we're updating documents, we can do that in targeted ways. So which document do you have questions on? Which section of that document do you have questions on? So again, that helps us to filter those feedback. So there's questions in a kind of an easier manner for us to manage. And then the last question there is just to describe and share what your question is, your suggestion, your edit, your comment, your feedback for that specific section that you are submitting for. So you can resubmit the form for each of the different documents. You can resubmit the form as much as you needed to be able to share that feedback with us. And that is currently live on our website. I'll run through these next couple ones if that's all right, Michelle, and then we'll put you on the spot for some questions and discussion. The couple of other documents that we updated as we were going through this, we also recognize that our code of ethics and our standards of conduct, while we've operated under them for quite a while, we just needed to kind of streamline the grammar on some of them and make them consistent with that styling guide that Bill developed and Chris and Lori had been using throughout the rest of the document. So now the code of ethics and the standards of conduct match and look like the rest of our documents. There was one section in the code of ethics and in the standards of conduct that we've updated. So again, red is old, green is new. We have created a stronger sounding number 11 in the code of ethics. Rather than avoiding the use of the title, you are not allowed to use the title for personal endeavors or for profits. And then in the standards of conduct, while it looks like a lot, it's not. Red is old, green is new. On point one in the old version of the standards of conduct had a lot going on in it. And so we really split that one out. That is now in 1 and 2. So the new standards of conduct says that you will uphold the commitment made to the program, the agencies, your chapter. And so that's kind of your commitment to the larger structure of the program is now stated in point 1. And point 2 is, again, we're just breaking down that old version that had a lot going on in it. Point 2 is your commitment to the training, the volunteer service, and advanced training requirements of the program. So you're committing to those pieces that make you a master naturalist. Since we added one, it bumped everything down one. So point 11 is now point 12. So the old point 11 was actually quite confusing. We had to actually look, I had to look it up, Michelle, what self-laudatory meant. So we clarified that point and made it a little bit stronger. Refrain from advertising or self-promotion of membership status for personal gain or in a manner detrimental to the team and program and its volunteers. And then point 13, again, just took out the language that was not as strong as it needed to be. So use of alcohol and controlled substances is prohibited as a master naturalist. All right. So with that, we have raced through all of these. Michelle, do you want to take some questions? It looks like you are busy typing chat right now. And you're muted still. Okay.
Okay, so I was answering one question in the chat, and the question was correct me if I'm not understanding the question correctly. Bob had asked, bank statements are online held by the bank. Do we need to also keep a copy? And I say that yes, you need to keep a copy, but an electronic copy is fine. Your chapters don't have to keep a hard copy.
Yep. So I think the question is, does he need to download it from his bank, or is the bank holding onto the record fine? I think it would make sense to download the record from the bank and have an electronic version of that copy.
So, and then Sharon asks a question about the bylaws. We're happy to have a vote on bylaws or not, and we'll follow. So I pulled out the item about approval, adoption and amendment of bylaws, Article 10, Article 10 from the bylaws on adoption. And that's what I pasted into the chat, Sharon. And so the bylaws do say that your chapter would need to adopt the bylaws.
Do you want me to pull it up on the screen?
Oh, sure. Page 12.
And could I have a question about that? This is Donna from Rio Grande Valley chapter. I was reading what you were saying, and they have to be approved by the advisors and the team in state office. So we use your new template, get it all fixed up, send it back to y'all for approval before we can submit it to our chapter for voting and approval. You're gonna get amended bylaws from every single chapter that you have to approve before our members can vote on it.
Right.
And who at the state office is going to get those?
You can send them to me.
Okay. That's a real tight line now for us to get that all approved for and ready to be in place by January 1st. Yeah.
The bylaws, you don't edit the bylaws.
Right.
The bylaws are a fillable form. The only things that you edit or add into the bylaws are these sections where you're saying that you're adopting it in certain sections. I'm going to go all the way back up on this document. You add your chapter name at the top. I'm going to go down. Sorry, I went too far. And you add in, Michelle told me if I passed it. You add in section DF here. You add the 12 or the 24 month term limit.
Right.
And whether or not you keep the last article or the amendment that has the 501c3, that is if you don't choose to use this, then if you're not a 501c3, you take this off. If you are, you keep this.
Right. But my question is, since this is a whole new bylaws, then it is an amendment to our previous bylaws, which means you have to approve that before we can present it to membership. Right? Because we're amending the current bylaws. We're throwing out the old ones, and this is new ones.
Yeah. So, Mary Pearl, you had mentioned maybe making this a form on the website, right?
I could, where chapters would submit their bylaws through a form.
And basically that form would just say, this is our term, this is the term we've selected, like the things that you need to put in here. And so like, if, once you have that set,
and then I can send them with the typed written in it. Yeah, I can do that if you want to do it that way. That would be easier than us sending it to them sending it back and us sending it there. Yeah. Let me go back and make that. That'll take me a few days to do that. And then we'll send out that kind of updated process in the next couple days.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Y'all have enough work to do.
No, and this is the feedback that we needed.
Yeah.
All right. Are there other questions?
Michelle?
Hi, Dan.
This is Dan Porter from the Panhandle chapter.
Yeah.
We made amendments to our bylaws that I sent. And so do I just need to go back and change that to 24 and I'm done?
Yes.
Okay. But we've already voted on it and everything. So that's good, correct?
You'll have to
Well,
revote.
I think, Dan, you'll have to revote because there are like the bylaws that you had aren't exactly the same as what we presented today.
Okay.
But the fundamental change for you is that you're 24 months.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically these bylaws have to be presented to our club, to the chapter. And then next month we vote on them. And we're good?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes? Okay.
And
Okay.
this set of bylaws is not effective or becomes effective for the state program on January 1, 2023.
Yeah, we're gonna make them effective here coming November. Is that okay?
It's
Mhm,
fine.
That's
Yep.
fine.
Because that's when our election is for next year.
Yep.
Is in November, and that's, I wanted to serve we're gonna do an election for all members, but one's for a 2-year term and the other one's gonna be for a 1-year term until next year. Which will elect the 2-year term for the other 2 officers.
Okay,
Okay, I think I'm good.
okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, hi,
I-
Carolyn.
Hi, how are y'all? One, if we keep electronic copies of bank statements, should they be accessible to all members or just board members?
I believe that it says bank statements are only available to your executive committee.
Okay, thank you. One other question on the changes on the bylaws. If we don't make any changes to it, do we still need to vote to approve it
Yes.
in its new form?
Yes, yep. I'll also say one of the questions that we fielded early on is these chapter records. This is the access level for meeting minutes or for annual budgets. This is our suggested minimum. We have one chapter who says, well, we want to make an annual budget available to all of our chapter members. So it's a higher, kind of a wider range of folks who have access potentially. And that's fine. This is the minimum, is that at least your board of directors need to have access to that annual budget. Okay, Michelle, are there questions? I've lost my chat now.
Yeah, hold on. Can changes and updates to the COH be made and submitted at any time of year? You might have to explain the question to me, Robert.
I don't know if he wants to come off mute. There he is.
This is Robert. Do you need me to clarify my question?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently have been working on the chapter operating handbook, and now we're going to be looking at the new version. So we're going to probably delay that and probably till next year to complete our update for our chapter operating handbook. I mean, is there a certain time of year that y'all are going to require updates to these documents, or can we make our amendments and turn them into y'all at any time?
I think you can take your amendments and look at them in context of this new version of the chapter operating handbook,
Mhm.
which will become effective for the state on January 1.
Okay, but do we need to submit our chapters operating handbook to y'all at any time of the year, though? I mean, once we finish
yeah,
The-
I was just looking that up. 1 second. Because I honestly don't remember what it says on that part. Adoption and amendment of the handbook is in section 9. And
In the COH?
yes.
So amendments and
Last
revisions
page.
to this COH must be approved by 2/3 vote of the board members. State office does need a copy within 30 days.
So the COH, we don't need to see beforehand.
Okay, thanks.
And then there's a question about the CMOP. Does the chapter membership also need to vote and approve the revised CMOP? No, that does not get voted on.
And this CMOP does become effective January 1, 2023. So let's do this, since you guys are a week into having these documents in front of you. If you will please continue to review them, look through each of these documents, and the process for adoption and for voting for these, the updates that have been made and what we've shared on the previous slides. Again, the recording today, our slides will be put on the website by this afternoon, if not tomorrow morning, so that you guys can really see that breakdown. And then we'll have an opportunity at the annual meeting to ask questions and focus in after you've had a little bit more time to review everything. Michelle, are we good with that? You want to move on? We only had one other thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last part of our meeting, we just wanted to kind of bring this back up again as you guys are getting ready for your end of the year succession planning. Your elections and your chapter leadership retreats that might be coming up. Your 2023 chapter boards will be implementing these all of these governing documents in the new year. And please go ahead and plan those retreats so that they can bring in these new governing documents, work through the process of updating your chapter policies to match, or your chapter practices to match these new governing policies. Your incoming presidents, if they are known, are welcome to join us at the annual meeting for chapter leadership. If y'all have your incoming president at least identified and they want to come to that luncheon, please let us know so that we can make sure that we update that registration, or they can log back into their registration and update it as well. We also are having a TMN Tuesday focus specifically on succession planning. So we're working with a speaker that is going to focus on board succession planning, and that will be our TMN Tuesday chapter presidents joint meeting on December 13th. So please look for that as a resource to provide additional guidance as you guys are getting ready for your chapter retreats and whatnot. And then last but not least, Michelle threw the screenshot down in there. But as you are getting ready to elect your new leadership, please update VMS to match and mark in that director's list. That is the best way for Michelle and I to be able to, it's the only way for us to be able to communicate with you guys and the appropriate person in each chapter, presidents, vice presidents, and so on. Okay. And then last slide, I promise, this is just a reminder of our last couple of meetings. So our October 20th annual meeting is our chapter leadership luncheon on Thursday of our event. That will be virtually streamed as well. So if you're not able to be there in person, don't worry. I'm going to send that virtual link out probably in 2 weeks or so. I don't have it set up quite yet. November 29th is going to be our next kind of standard chapter presidents meeting. And then December 13th is our joint TMN Tuesday meeting with incoming chapter presidents as well. And that is it. All right. So with that, I want to thank you guys. I realize that we've gone over our hour just a little bit here. So please, thank y'all, and I'll get this recording posted within the next couple of hours. Y'all let me know if you have any other questions.
I want to say thank y'all very much. The documents part of the job isn't the fun part, and I really appreciate the effort you guys made to get this clarified for us. It really helps.
Great, thank you. And big thanks to Lori and Chris and Bill again.